Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here to talk about what I find a very exciting topic, which is the Atlantic-Arctic interplay, and which I think is the short form of the following excerpt here from the actual statement. Which reads, acknowledging the critical link between the Atlantic Ocean and the portion of the Arctic region that borders the Atlantic. And I'm going to give this presentation in my role as the co-chair of the Arctic program of the European Climate Research Alliance. And what I'm going to do in the next 12 minutes or so is just to give you a brief overview what the European Climate Research Alliance, or short ICRA, is about. And then I report some of the progress that has taken place in the last 12 months. Okay, ICRA. I mean, it's a relatively recent alliance. It has been launched in October 2011, and the purpose is to advance our understanding and prediction capabilities of climate variability and change. And we try to achieve this by the following approach. It's through coordination of European climate research activities and resources, such as large-scale infrastructure. It is identifying research topics we would like to work on together, big challenges, where a single institution or a single nation can't really make progress on its own, and to provide a strong unified voice of the European climate research community in a bottom-up approach. And we have 4 collaborative programs. One is Arctic ICRA, and I'm sort of representing this. Then there's one on high impact events and climate change, sea level and climate change, and changes in the hydrological cycle. Right, coming to this Arctic program, we have in total, we have 25 participating institutions from 10 different European countries. And I would argue that the leading centers here are involved. And I would also argue that their interest is not just in the Arctic, but it's sort of the scope is wider, incorporating the Atlantic region as well. So what is the strength of this alliance? I think the strength is the breadth of expertise, including observations, modeling, data assimilation, theory, but also logistics, having the people around, who run the large-scale infrastructure. And I have to say, we had a few workshops since the launch, and it's great to have these different expertise sitting in one room and trying to work out what the scientific challenges actually are. I do think that we play leading roles in various national and international committees when it comes to forming international research agendas. We are flexible and responsive to new ideas. That's partly because we don't solely depend on third-party funding. And we do have access to large-scale infrastructure such as icebreakers, polar station aircraft, and so forth. And I would also argue that we have available and we develop some of the most advanced regional and global Earth system models. And our mission is to advance Arctic climate research in Europe for the benefit of society. And we are aiming to do so, or trying to do so, through international cooperation beyond Europe as well, of course, through the identification of key topics, defining priorities where we think, emphasis should be placed, and by providing advice to policymakers, funding agencies if needed. And I mentioned we had these 4 workshops since the launch, and we came up with the following 3 key questions. Number 1, why is Arctic sea ice declining so rapidly? So what is the origin of Arctic amplification, if you will? What are the local and global consequences of Arctic climate change? And I think that's the theme which is closest related to what I'm talking here. And then the question how polar prediction capabilities can actually be improved. But I would argue that the theme Arctic-Atlantic interplay plays a role in all 3 of those. Okay? So that brings me to an update on developments in this area of Atlantic-Arctic interplay. And the reason, sort of the first event I would like to mention is this international workshop of polar lower latitude linkages and their role in weather and climate prediction, which was held last December in Barcelona and Spain. And this workshop was attended by 80 participants from 20 different countries. So we had an excellent international turnout. And the idea was to understand, sort of review what our current understanding is, and then to pave the way and identify topics that needs to be addressed in the years to come. And the outcome of this is a workshop report which has been submitted to the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society just last week. Now, a lot of the discussion at that workshop centered around the following statement, if you will. What happens at the poles does not stay at the poles. And we were discussing this both for the atmosphere and for the ocean. And the discussion centered around three questions. Can it? Has it in the sense whether recent events can be explained by what happened in the Arctic, and will it in the future? And here's a sketch from how it possibly could, from a paper in Nature Geoscience, which was published a few months ago, and it shows the atmospheric anomalies associated with Arctic sea ice decline here for the left side in summer. I mean, in summer when you have less ice, you have evaporation and moisture supply to the atmosphere that leads in autumn to more snowfall over Siberia. Then you have more snow. That has an impact, or could have an impact, on the planetary waves in the troposphere, which disturb the vortex in autumn. And then through this breakdown of the stratospheric vortex, the whole northern hemisphere is affected. So that's one possible mechanism, and at that workshop more were brought forward, and there was consensus that the answer is yes, it can. When it comes to whether it has, the Arctic amplification is the source of the cold recent winters, the question mark is larger, and that's largely because we are dealing with a system in the mid-latitudes where you have a very strong a component of internal variability. And when it comes to the future, will it? I think the answer is yes, but we don't know quite how strong it will be and how exactly it will look like. But I think we have ideas how to come up with answers to those questions. And we also discussed the linkages in the ocean. I mentioned that already. And I think what is key here are so-called salinity anomalies, freshwater anomalies. And there I think the answer to the question, can it? It is yes. Has it? Here's an example. We know, for instance, of the great salinity anomalies which circled around the subpolar gyre in the 1960s. It had a very big impact on the ocean circulation. So it certainly has, and it's very likely to continue to do so in the future. And one thing which was highlighted at that workshop is the potential role of the Beaufort gyre, where when it's strong you have an accumulation of fresh water. And when this vortex, the gyre, breaks down due perhaps to an atmospheric circulation anomaly, there is a potentially a release of fresh water which subsequently reaches the North Atlantic. And this might be an opportunity, also a window of opportunity where you can have prediction skill on interannual and decadal timescales in the system. That brings me to the second activity, and Michael mentioned that already. That's the International Planning Workshop for a North Atlantic Arctic Science Program, which was held in Arlington almost to the day a year ago. And Michael mentioned the key outcomes of this. There is this report which has been published in EOS, and the science plan will be published fairly soon. I just took a few of the overarching research questions from that report, and I think the first one is perhaps most important for this theme I'm presenting here. So what are the critical dynamical processes and feedbacks driving variability and change in the North Atlantic Arctic climate system? And then importantly, how will changing Arctic cryosphere influence ocean atmosphere sea ice interaction and thereby influencing biogeochemical processes and ecosystem structure? And I think these two workshops actually they come quite well together, because the first one, the Barcelona one, was more about the physical system, also about prediction in the northern hemisphere as a whole, whereas this one sort of was more focused on the gateway regions, certainly when it comes to the interplay, and it was also very strong in involving biological aspects. You know, and I think sort of what came out of these two workshops together makes for a very nice program in my view. Okay, so then I will skip this and just come up with a very short summary, actually. Just saying that two workshops have been held in 2014, and I think they will be very effective at sort of reviewing our state of knowledge, and they were also very effective at formulating priorities. And I think they have been, that is very important, of course, in the framework of Galway. They have been also very effective at bringing the international community together. And then last but not least, I think really the research community on the topic Atlantic-Arctic interplay is ready to move forward. Thank you.